Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Talking Football podcast. I'm absolutely delighted to say we're joined on the line by an absolute Scottish football legend, Evo Den Bieman. Evo, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Derek.
Great.
Lovely to be on here as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's it like weather-wise over where you are in the Netherlands just now? Because where I am, it's absolutely roasting. If everyone's struggling with the heat.
Well, we're not all that hot, but it's lovely, sunny, summery weather. The nights are pretty cold still, so no problems to get to sleep. But no, we've got a lovely week up till now. Last week we had a day of rain, and that brought us a lot of problems with the rivers, which they had in Belgium, Germany, and Netherlands as well. So the water in the rivers is quite high, but from Friday onwards, it just turned, and lovely weather.
Fantastic stuff. Your career then, Evo, looking back, you were born the day before me, in fact, the 4th of February, 1967 in the Netherlands. A little village, is it Wamel? Is that how you pronounce it?
Very good, Derek. You've excelled again. Even that pronunciation was better than the Dutch shirt. So very good, Wamel. Yeah, excellent. So you share a birthday with Ronaldo, isn't it?
Cristiano Ronaldo, yeah. I think that's where the similarities end, I think.
Same here.
Were you always playing football as a young kid, Evo? Were you always kicking a ball around?
Yeah, pretty much. Because in the village there wasn't many other opportunities for sport, and the football club was the focal point. I think I played from about 6. Nowadays they can start at 4. But at my age, it was 6. So we had quite a talented group, which made up a team, 11-a-side at that time. And we were doing pretty well against the surrounding villages. And I can't remember doing anything else up till my 14th, when I started playing a little bit of tennis as well, because the village had a new tennis club. But football was the main point. I can remember playing for the championship, the village championship in tennis, and I had to choose between football and tennis. I obviously chose for the football, and didn't make me popular in the tennis fraternity. But there you go.
Yeah. Did you? I guess as a young boy, you'd have watched that great Dutch side of the 70s. Did they sort of inspire you to become a footballer, Evo? Can you remember watching them on television?
I must admit, it's just a wee bit too early for me, because I'm born in 67. So the really fantastic Ajax team was 71, 72, 73. Yeah. And I have a slight remembrance of watching the World Cup in Germany when they overawed the whole world with total football. Yeah. And I must admit that my dad was a Feyenoord supporter, and he took me to the Magic Stadium, the Kuip in Rotterdam. Yeah. And as you can imagine, coming from a small village, there was many high-rise buildings, and then you came into that stadium and you watched and you looked, and everywhere there were seats. It was 65,000 capacity. So he took me along there quite a bit, not every week, but once a month or every now and again, and I was really overawed with it. But I don't think that at that time I was really supporting anybody. Because you were mainly involved in your own football, and you were always on the streets playing football in the parks, on the street, at the football club. So I don't think I really never really. I like to go to football matches, but not that I have a really dead keen appetite to watch every game for a certain club or anything like that.
Yeah. So see if you you had to choose between tennis and football, you must have been quite an athletic boy when you were growing up, Ivo. I guess you realised at a young age you were pretty good at both football and tennis. Did you think you could have a career in both of them?
No, not at all. Because at my 15th, I changed villages to play football, because next door there's a village where they play at a higher level. So I got into a little bit of a conflict with the manager of the club when I was 15. Yeah. And then I said, well, I'm going to go to the next village and try it there, and because I thought he played me out of position. I'd played center midfield pretty much every year since I was 6, and then he put me at the back. I didn't really like the dynamics of that position at that time. So he kept playing me there, and I said, well, I'm fed up with this, I'll just go to the next village. And that's where I pretty much made my career before I came to Scotland, because I was 4 years in their youth setup and then 5 years in their senior teams. So, and then I came to play with much better players, against much better players. I trained with them. So I grew as a player. I grew as an athlete as well, because at 15 I was pretty lanky. I didn't have any muscle. I didn't carry any weight, and I could run for days. That's pretty much how it was. And my at that time, and still nowadays, the Dutch FA have a selection system from amateur football. Yeah. And I never played for any of that team, because I was pretty quirky kind of player. I didn't run as nice, as supple as other players. I didn't have the best of touches at times, but I could organize a team and I could run a team. And obviously with my physical side, speed and endurance, I could keep going for 90 minutes as long as you like. So never really thought that I would carve out a career in football until this guy from Scotland came to watch one of my games in the Netherlands and congratulated me on the performance. And 5 months later, he invited me to come to Scotland and join Montrose in Manchester. So no, I was pretty much studying and playing football. So never thought at that age, until it really happened, that I was meant to go any further in football.
Yeah. Well, this might sound a daft question. Did you know much about Scottish football or Montrose? I can't imagine you would have known much about them.
No, Montrose, I didn't know anything. I didn't even know where it was, At that time, I think Theo Snelders was one of the first Dutch players that joined a Scottish club. Yeah. And thereafter, there was more players go in that direction. But you have to remember that was all players that played for a full-time professional club. I came from amateur, and I had this thought of going for a year's adventure and see how far I got with the combination of playing football and studying at Aberdeen University. And that's how I actually entered the Scottish football, and if it had just went down like a lead balloon, I would have left after a year or maybe even before. But now it's history that I spent 10 years and had a lovely career in Scottish football.
Yeah. And what were you studying at Aberdeen?
Mainly the central refectory and the female.
Yeah, fantastic.
No, I was studying. No, I didn't do anything on studies. I enrolled at university because I was that was the deal, part of the deal. But I had already a degree from the Netherlands, so I found out that the level of my education was already above the university years that I spent in. So I pretty much, well, I had something to do during the day, go to the university, but it shouldn't be called studying or anything like that. So I mainly hung about with guys from university, met my wife at university. So that's one of the best choices I've made, decisions I took. So yeah, but for studying, no, it wasn't for me.
Yeah, and I guess you enjoyed a night out or two in Aberdeen as well, Ivo. Was that a good nightlife?
Yeah, very good, very good. Yeah. Well, we had a squad from Aberdeen, former players that had either played in the Highland Leagues or were in the youth setup of Aberdeen. And we traveled together in a minivan from Bonnecourt, which was the company of the owner at that time. And we drove together. So yeah, many Saturday night we spent up at Union Street and ending up in Mr. G's or Zigzags or whatever nightclub was popular at the time. Yeah, they introduced me properly into the Aberdonian night scene.
See, with Scottish football, how did you find it? Was it because it's really physical? Did it take you some time to get used to the style of play?
What I found, it was really busy and hectic. Yeah. Pace was 100 miles an hour, of course, which is sometimes still is. But I got used to it pretty quickly. I think also because the game I played suited Scottish football and vice versa. Yeah. So I must, yeah, otherwise you would have expected that I was in and out of the team quite a lot, but I pretty much was a mainstay from the start. I played something, in the 2 seasons, I played something like 80 games for Montrose. So, which is not a bad return for 2 seasons, you know, and but that was pretty well, probably the biggest adaptation, that the games were coming thick and fast. You know, in the Netherlands, I played probably like 22 league games and maybe 3 cup games. And here we played 2 cup competitions, 39 of a league season. So yeah, but I have obviously had plenty of time to rest during the day, and so yeah, no, I got used to it pretty quickly. What I did find was that there was so much more communication on the pitch. You know, in amateur, there's a real difference between amateurs and professionals. Professionals are really busy with their work, and they do everything to win the games, and communication is one of them. Communication during a game to your players, players around you. It's phenomenal how big an improvement you can make if you just start communicating. I still teach it over here, you know, when I coach a team, I always say, if you start communicating and let people know what you want, where you are, you become a better player instantly, 25% better player instantly, because, well, communication is the key to teamwork. And that's what I found in the beginning. I really found that the difference between the Dutch side of football, amateur, of course, and then semi-part-time professional football in Scotland.
Yeah, I mean, your English is spot on, Ivo, but when you first arrived in Scotland and walking into the dressing room, did it take you a while to understand what people were saying?
Well, I had to deal with people from Edinburgh, Dundee and Aberdeen. So I just about a half a year, I only asked, what did you say? What does it mean? And that's how I really, grew quickly in understanding the Scottish lingo. Yeah. One of the kit men told me the first time I met him that I should learn Urba, because whenever there was a decision to be made, Urba. So that's and the thing that also is really helped me is that I immersed in the Scottish way of living. You know, there was obviously a huge Dutch contingent in Aberdeen through Shell and the oil, but I never made contact with those people. I was in university. I had the people of Montrose around me, the players of Montrose around me, and so that made it grow my language skills and my understanding of Scottish language a lot quicker. And well, even now I speak with a Scottish twang, you know, every now and again.
Yeah, good on you. And I mean, you had joint managers at Montrose that season, Chick McClelland and Doug Rookvey, who's an Aberdeen legend. How were they as coaches? Did you learn off them, Ivo?
Unorthodox, I would say. A lot of running, as you would imagine, in those times. Yeah. Whereas in the Netherlands at that time, we only trained with the ball, and nowadays, I suppose in Scotland, everybody works with the ball because you can just get as fit with the ball and running with the ball and doing sharp exercises. But then it was a lot of running. We were training at Rossi, which was a youth detention center. Wow. So and I was used to beautiful pitches with floodlights, and here it wasn't the case. So that was an eye opener. But Duke and Chick were both real winners, you know, and that's what set them up. And it was obviously not always the best marriage of having two joint managers as your management team, but I think they fed off each other, and it obviously brings in lovely memories of how they fought against each other, you know, and how they dealt with certain issues in the team or in the squad, but that's what, they made that team into a team, you know, they made that squad into a team. And because the expectations were pretty high, because Brian Keith had come in, took over the club, quite a number of players coming in, and then the first 17 games we were really indifferent in our results. We were fourth bottom or something at Christmas time. And then we started to pick up points, and obviously they saw something in the team that was playing at that time, and obviously they're going through a transition of players in the team, in the squad, out of the squad, wheeling and dealing. But in the end, the manager's job is always to find the best team and to find, not always start the best players, you know, and that takes a lot of courage and a lot of dedication to find that team that's going to produce it for you every week in, week out. And they obviously found a team from Christmas onwards in a difficult setting that brought us second place in that first season I played there.
Yeah, you mentioned that great comeback, and you went up by a point ahead of Cowdenbeath being promoted. Yeah. So it must be, it's so memorable when you go up when the margins are just so small, isn't it? A memorable first season for you, Ivo.
Yeah, it was definitely a lot of memories and fantastic memories, you know, because I think the last 6 games of the season, we played a number of direct competitors to that second spot. And I don't know, but I think we didn't lose a goal in those last 6 games. Incredible. And that said enough. This team could really play to the 1-0. It was just as boring as Arsenal at times, and you just score a goal and then lean on their defense. And sometimes we would score another goal, and sometimes we would keep going until it was end of the game and win 1-0. And I know that we were challenged by Berwick Rangers and Cowdenbeath, and I don't know, there was 3 or 4 teams, and they were all stealing points off each other. And from the last 5 or 6 games, we were the only one that was consistently winning games until the end of the season. And at the last game of the season at Queen of the South, well, after 20 minutes, we were 3-0 up, and second place was in the bag.
Yeah, a difficult season. The following season, the club were relegated. But I mean, you went and played Celtic at Parkhead in the Scottish Cup. I know you lost heavily, but as an experience, an amateur player coming into Scottish football and playing a team like that, I know you'd play them much more later on in your career, Ivo. Yeah. But what was that like? Can you remember much about going to Parkhead for the first time?
Yeah, the magnitude of a game like that. Well, in advance, you don't really see anything, you know, but I can remember going into Parkhead, and it was the old Parkhead, that's not the new Parkhead, and Celtic were not supported as heavily as they are years after. So I think they had crowds of 25, 30,000 or something like that. But I can remember going into, coming out of the tunnel onto the pitch, and it's just like I explained to you, the Feyenoord Stadium, you know, it's like as high as trees. There was stands, and there was like roofs and terracing, you know, and it wasn't, Parkhead is much nicer now. Of course, it was a little bit run down, and they had quite a big track around it as well, but still so impressive. For, like you said, an amateur player that had just joined a Scottish professional outfit. So and that's the moment, you know, where you either going for that challenge and do your best and have the mental state to not freeze or not get all worried about what can happen, you know. And I could have gone either way, obviously, but luckily I found it as a really exhilarating experience and a fantastic opportunity to do something, you know, and play and learn of these players and see how far we got. Yeah. And I can remember only getting the run around by Darius Dobček, Tommy Coyne and John Collins, because we were just running ragged, you know. I think David Larter prevented it from going 15-0. It could have been a 10 score. But yeah, the experience itself was good, because I can remember as soon as I got the ball, I was probably up front with Jimmy Fotheringham, I think. And I just started running with the ball and see how far I could get and relieve the defense a little bit, you know. And that's where obviously certain papers wrote about it, and I got a nice write-up about the performance, and obviously was kept or planted a little seed in people's head that were in football. But for me, it was a fantastic experience. And like you said, one I've repeated quite a few times, but going back to my amateur time, I never anticipated that I would play at a Celtic Park, for example.
Yeah, and of course, at the end of that season, Dundee would be promoted to the Premier League, and they would take you from Montrose, Ivo. How did that move come about? You must have been delighted to join a team that were just going into the top league in Scotland. Could you quite believe it after just 2 seasons in Scottish football, or did you believe that you were good enough to play at that level?
Well, it was being the right person at the right time, because we played Dundee at the last game of the season. Montrose were already relegated, and Dundee had obviously been heavily on the party scene, and I played against Willie Jameson. And Willie thought, well, it's okay, you know, it's the last game of the season. Let them have their day at Dens Park.
Yeah.
So I played really well. Played up front with Willie Callahan, and I think I scored one, and I laid one on. And within a couple of weeks, Jim Leishman was the manager at that time. The deal was made with Dundee, you know. But did I think I would progress again? Maybe not during that season, because it was a gamble for Dundee, of course, as well. I was 25 at the time, so I wasn't somebody that was 20 and was just coming out of the youth ranks and proved his potential. I was 25, so it was also the first time when I started really training on a daily level. All my life I had trained at night, and the transition to training in the morning and get your body used to that physical exertion and the stress, that the physical stress of training every day, and the tackles and the challenges, you know. So I think, no, I never thought I would step up, but great, of course, I got the opportunity. And from that point, I made it the opportunity, you know. I filled in the role as good as I could. I played quite a number of games for Dundee, loved my time there, played with legends like Graham Rix and what's his name from Everton, captain Kevin Ratcliffe, Jim Leighton. So yeah, it was just a dream come true, although I never had that dream, but I lived the dream more than I had the dream.
Yeah. Before we look at Dundee, Ivo, I mean, we had Jim Leishman on the show a couple of weeks ago, another huge character in Scottish football. How did you find him? I guess life was never dull when he was around.
Jim came in at a difficult time at Montrose, because the squad thought Chick and Doug was released of their duties quite unfairly.
Yeah.
So he had to prove himself again to us, you know. And when you come into that kind of arena with something to prove, or to prove that he's a better manager than Chick and Dougie was, it was pretty. And I didn't know. I was probably pretty much in a micro world of Aberdeen and doing my own thing, you know, that I didn't know who Leishman was.
Yeah.
And I didn't know of his reputation. I only found that out later on, actually, when I went to Dunfermline itself, not the time that he was managing at Montrose. Yeah. But yeah, he obviously did well for himself, and I don't know if he did himself any favors by going to Montrose. I don't know how he sees that period himself. I don't even know how long he stayed after I left, if he stayed another season or whatever, you know. Yeah. But what I can remember is that was the time when the football club was trying to introduce older professionals on close to their retirement, and maybe they broke down the nucleus of that team spirit that was so strong in the season before. Yeah. Afterwards, I've seen it happen again, you know, that they start tinkering with the squad in order to make the next step, and the only thing that they achieve is the opposite of what they wanted to achieve. Yeah. And I don't know if Brian Keith was maybe too harsh by going too hard in on Dugan and Chick. I don't know. It's just that afterwards, we never got that fighting spirit back that we knew from the season before.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, from Montrose, from Jim Leithman, you go to Dundee. Simon Stainrod, of course, as a manager, Ivo, another eccentric guy, shall we say. What was he like to deal with and to play for?
He was really good to me. He gave me time to adjust. He was more the relaxed guy because Jim Duffy was his assistant, and he would be the pit bull, so to say, and he would be much more direct than Simon was. And well, I have fantastic memories of them, you know, and it was obviously good cop, bad cop duo, but yeah, can't really remember if we had any good training sessions or it was, but also there they built, that was really a team of journeymen, you know. Yeah. They brought quite a number of players from England: Jamie McGowan, Gary McAllister, Gary McEwen, Andy Kiwomia, Dusan Vrto, Ian Gilzine, and then Ratcliffe and Graham Rix. So it was like really, and how they managed to get that team going. It was fantastic, of course. I think they had just had Stuart Beattie was playing on and off. Billy Dodds was playing on and off.
Yeah.
Alan Dinney, he was the main, and Stevie Campbell. That was pretty much the people that were there from the previous season, you know. The rest was all changed.
Yeah.
And I think we finished either 5th or 6th in the league that year.
Yeah, you done fantastically well.
Yeah, that was so. If you put that into the mix as a man manager, as a really building a team, he done fantastic, you know, with people that never seen each other, never played with each other, and then bringing so many new players in.
Yeah,
fantastic achievement.
Yeah, we'll talk about some of those players, but for yourself, Ivo, going into Dundee from Montrose and playing with these guys, did that improve your game? Did that bring your game on a little bit by playing week in, week out with these sort of players?
At Dundee, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, it's not only the games, it's the training sessions where you have to be sharp. It's the competition against people that want to play in your position. That's what makes you better. Training every day with these guys, training every day full stop, that makes you a better player, that makes you a stronger player. Yeah. But I have a theory about this, you know, because my qualities as a player, my heading, my kicking, my passing, my speed, they don't improve, or they improve marginally. But what the step up is from one level to the next level is the physical ability to keep up with the pace, to keep up with the endurance, to keep up with the power that's required in those games. And that's what people at the top, they have that in abundance. You know, they are the fittest players. They can run for days. They can sprint 50 to 80 times a game, and they will be just as good in decision making when they are tired, as opposed when they are in a relaxed situation. That's the difference between the top players and the level below and the level below that. That it's all about physical exertion and the mental state to make those decisions and make every time the right decision. So the ability, slightly, you become sharper, your touch is getting better, but the main difference is that physical ability and the mental ability to play and to make those decisions well, even before 60,000 people, even taking a penalty kick in front of 13 or 30 or 100,000 people. That's what the difference is.
Yeah,
in my humble opinion.
Yeah. You mentioned Graham Rix. I watched Neil McCann was on Rangers television at the weekend, and he says he learned a lot from him at Dundee when he was coming through. Of course, ex-Arsenal player, played for England and what have you. What was he like as a teammate, Ivo? Did you learn a bit from him?
What I most admired from Graham is there used to be this track around Dens Park as well.
Yeah.
And there was quite a grassy area after the goal, behind the goal. And after training sessions, we would just ping balls over the width of the pitch behind the goals, because we weren't allowed on Dens, of course, and just did that for every day or every week. We would spend half an hour just kicking long balls and have that what they call it, muscle memory. Muscle memory. Yeah, you can become so much better and so much more predictable with your long kicks.
Yeah.
And yeah, and the thing is, I had like United Nations in my house, because I rented a house with an Australian guy that I met in Aberdeen. Then we moved down to Dundee and picked up one of the YTS boys, also an Australian. Yeah. And then we moved to Broughty Ferry, and Graham Rix was staying in the Fort Hotel with John Black, I think it was, who was the sponsor and the owner of the hotel. So we met him in there quite a bit, and we had brilliant times with him. Later on, I had Morten Weighorst in my house as well. He stayed in my house. So yeah, Graham Rix was just fantastic. He kept himself to himself as well. But I can always envisage myself taking those long kicks every Tuesday, every Thursday, and just ping balls around, just fantastic.
Yeah, and likewise, I mean, you mentioned Kevin Ratcliffe as well, another legend at Dens Park. It's hard to imagine these sort of guys pitching up at Dundee, but again, it must have been great to be in and around these guys.
Yeah, I'm not the person who really is quickly overawed by their achievements, but what I really found that they were really top guys, really nice guys, not big-headed, not walking about arrogant or look at me and my career. They were just one of the lads, and that made a bigger impression to me than all the medals that they won and all the career that they had. And that's why they were so successful and so accepted in the Dundee team.
Yeah. You mentioned, I mean, it was a multicultural sort of dressing room. You mentioned Morten Weighorst there, and Dusan Vrto. We've had him on the podcast as well. Great guy, and great defender as well, wasn't he, in his day at Dundee?
He loved the scissor tackle, man. Jeez. Yeah, Dusan didn't speak a word, of English when he came. And first he was playing with Jim Duffy at the back, and then he moved into midfield. But yeah, really good player, really a very good pedigree as a professional, but through the lingo and the lingo barrier, you couldn't really connect with it, and that really funny guy, but on a private level, you couldn't really have this discussion with him, that was a shame, of course, but really good servant for Dundee.
He certainly was. Let's talk about the Rangers game then. Absolute famous game. Of course, you'd scored the opening goal, 4-3 win at Dens Park. People are still talking about that game, Ivo. What's your memories of that day?
The memories of that day is that I don't know anything about the build-up. I've watched the games, the highlights of the game with commentary of Jock Brown many a time on YouTube, and I've been shown it, of course. And I think it was maybe the third or fourth game into the season or something like that, and I had some adjustments to make, like I said, from part-time football to full-time football, and I sprained my ankle in pre-season. Never made it to Ireland, to the pre-season tour. Had to sit out the first game. Didn't play in that one, and then I played in the second one against St. Johnstone, against Sean McCauley, and that was me pretty much getting settled into the team. And then we played Rangers, so really surprised to start. Loved the occasion, loved the crowd inside, and we were obviously at an advantage because Andy Gorham was injured and Ali Maxwell played. So that was that was good for Dundee. But we went really gung-ho. We went after them, and we challenged them, and we chased them, and that's what can happen when a team with better quality players drop down 5% and the opposition challenge that with their extra 10%, and that's what happened. We just harassed them, and we rode our luck a little bit as well. But I scored the first goal. First time that I played against David Robertson as a left back, and he didn't really enjoy playing against me then, and he's never enjoyed playing against me afterwards. Playing against guys that you saw on television years before, Mikhailichenko, Haitley, McCoist wasn't that big in the Netherlands, but that kind of players, they were like household names. Kuznetsov was playing. They played in that Ukrainian team that won the European Cup. So it was, and then winning that game, and then out on the town, of course, and then it's even better, isn't it?
I bet.
It's not one of the nights that you had to sit in and hide yourself behind the curtains.
No, absolutely. You need to make the most of these nights, because they're few and far between in football. And I mean, you loved a goal against Rangers, Ivo. You scored against them at Ibrox that season. You'd score against them for Dunfermline. Did you? You must have loved playing against them. Did it bring out the best in you, do you think?
No, not really. I think there were scarce opportunities. I've also been dropped 7-0 at Ibrox. That game that you're talking about, we were beat 5-2 or something, opening game of the season. And I'm not really a prolific goal scorer. I would rather win the game and not score than score and get a drubbing of 7-0, for example. But no, I just like the challenges against those big teams, because I always had that thought, well, let's hope they give 10% less or 5% less because they think it's an easy game, There's always a chance that if the team formation is right and when everything is going according to plan, you have a chance to beat them. And in Scotland, that would be like a really upset, when smaller teams beat the Rangers and the Celtics of those era. And that was pretty much where you were.
Just stayed on Rangers. You probably been more so when you were at Dunfermline. You would have came up against Brian Laudrup and Paul Gascoigne, I'd imagine. What's your memories of those two?
If you say Brian Laudrup, I say spaghetti legs, because he would twist and turn you that often that you don't know where he was, and then with his flair, he would put the ball with his outside left towards the byline, and David Robertson would just motor by and just whip in the cross. But Gascoigne was something else, you know. If you have a player that plays in the middle of the park, which is the most difficult position because you've got people everywhere, and the awareness that he had, and you couldn't get close to him. That's really good players always make time and space for themselves. And he did it with such ease. He wasn't even challenged in the number of games that he played in Scotland. You know, he would just like walk through games like that. Yeah. And but if you see how quick he is and how much energy he still has at that time, of course, that was just amazing. The ability with his drive, with his skills, left pass, passing left, passing right, both feet, just a fantastic talent, a fantastic player. Unfortunately, the mental side of it wasn't that good, and which we unfortunately didn't bring out the best in his career that would match his ability.
Yeah. Talking about the mental side, we've had players on before who say they try to get in his head during games to try and put him off, and sometimes it would work, sometimes it wouldn't. Is that what you guys try to do, to try and put him off and try and get in his head and mentally put him off his game?
No, I don't think so. I don't think that playing against Dunfermline would he would see that as a challenge. He would see that as a walk in the park. Yeah. And I don't think he would he would be worried about what we said to him, you know. Yeah. It's like what Alan Moore always tells, a lovely story that he was trying to get into Mo Johnson's head, and Mo Johnson replied, "Watch out, or I'll buy you," because he'd just been sold from Hearts to from Hearts to St. Johnson or something like that. So if you not watch out, you get that kind of comment, then that puts you off the game anyway, you know. Yeah. Yeah. It's a brilliant one. Watch out, or I'll buy you.
Is Gaza one of the best players you've played against, Ivo? I guess he must be up there.
Yeah, Paul McStay as well. He's he was a Scottish version of Gaza, and maybe not as in the limelight as Gaza was, but he had the same qualities. You know, he such a shrewd football brain, saw the pass, had the ability to do it. Went up front for his team when it had to, you know, and yeah, similar kind of guys. Yeah. Di Canio, he was not a bad player either. Laudrup, obviously, but they all played in other positions. Pierre van Hooijdonk, fantastic player. You know what he did with the ball and free kicks and cross passes, and fantastic guy, nice guy to speak to as well. Yeah. So that in that era where I played in the Premier League, there was a lot of good players, but they probably stood out. Yeah. And the one that I really was undervalued, maybe not in Scotland, but in the rest of the world, Ali McCoist. You know, he was so shrewd, and he knew exactly what he was doing. He would see if he was the first one that would pass or shoot through your legs when you took a step, you know, and that he knew exactly what you were doing as a defender. Although I'm maybe 3-4 inches taller than him, he would always match me with just his extreme timing. Yeah. And also a very nice guy as well. You know, none of these guys were really big-headed against other players. They were not really putting you down when you were playing for either Montrose, Falkirk, Dundee, or Dunfermline. Yeah. They were really exemplary professionals, I would say.
Yeah. Before we look at Dunfermline more, did you play in the Dundee derby during your season?
That was even better one, because I got a penalty at one of the games at Tannadice when we won 1-0.
Yeah.
And that got me for that day legendary status in Dundee. I think I'm not legendary status anymore in Dundee, but that evening I milked the legendary status.
Right too. What was it like? I mean, as a foreigner coming to Dundee and your rivals are just a walk down the street. It's a bit bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very, very quirky, and but yeah, you have to deal with it. You know, we were the United were the bigger brother of the two, bigger budget, better players.
Yeah.
A bit Calimero effect on the Dundee side.
Yeah.
But well, that was the season that we really did well. And yeah, one of these games was against Dundee United, and I don't think there is then a sense of home and away. You know, it's just the people in the stadium that make it a home and away. But if you're just going across the road, you don't feel like, oh, we're going to go travel on a bus and go and have pre-season. It feels like a home game, so to say.
Yeah. So you moved to Dunfermline. Were you sad to leave after just a season, Evo? How did that move to Dunfermline come about?
Well, I had signed a year's contract. I never dealt with agents. Maybe it was stupid, but I signed a contract with Dundee for a year plus an option for another one, and the option was only on the club side. So I actually, after my first season, where I played, well, the majority of the games, I think I was involved at least in. I started pre-season training and with Dundee, just like normal, you know, but contract situation wasn't resolved. I was pretty much naive. I just trained and I didn't really go into the office and thought, well, this second year is just like add-on and it will just get sorted, you know. Yeah. And then Dundee were chasing Paul Tosh from Arbroath, I think, and for quite big money. I think 100,000 was quoted at the time, and I was just really naive about that, you know. And I thought, well, is that going to do something for me or challenge? And then I think it was 10 days, on Monday or Tuesday. 10, 12 days before the season started, they said, called me in the office and said, well, thanks for your services, you free to go.
Wow.
Yeah. Was just put by the garbage, and thanks for your services, free to go, freed. Then you think, geez, what happened? What happened just to me there, you know? And but stupid of myself, of course, not to have this contract situation resolved and get it sorted. And I just went home and to Broad Ferry, and I think it's same day or something like that, because managers speak to each other, you know. And I don't know if it was that day or the day after, that Dick Campbell phoned me. Yeah. He said, listen, Dick Campbell just taken over at Dunfermline. Know you've been released. Would you like to come in for training? And and it was at that same time, Stevie Campbell, the left back, also was either released or whatever. We were in the same situation, so we went together to Dunfermline.
Okay. Fantastic.
I think we trained on the Friday with them, so that was just like a match practice or a match preparation session, and we played West Ham United. They always played West Ham United on the last Saturday before the season started. Yeah. So Stevie and I were invited to play in that game. And we were both listed as trialist. And again, by pure coincidence, I was the right guy at the right time and did well. I got myself a contract for 2 years.
Yeah.
I think it was like, even in that game, Rio Ferdinand and Frank Lampard were playing.
Wow.
Because they hail from West Ham United, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, they were really young, obviously.
Yeah.
But played 60 minutes, I think. Came off, got a nice ovation, waved to the crowd, and got a contract.
Yeah, fantastic.
So just by the seat of your pants, got myself sorted again.
Yeah, and you'd go on and probably enjoy the best spell of your career there. Dick Campbell and Bert Payton, Evo, what a combination those two are. How much did you, what were they like, and did you enjoy playing for them too?
Well, first thing, I had to understand them again, because they both speak five. And Dick is the same character now as he was then, that's what's 26 years ago, 27, 8.
Yeah, he's still a man.
Yeah, they were just like Steinrod and Duffy, one would be the bad cop, one would be the good cop.
Yeah.
And just characters, and but what they did really well, as did Steinrod and Duffy, as did McClelland and Rugby, they built a squad. They were asked to make a transition in the squad, roll out some players, bring in new players, cut costs, and they did that because Billy Davis went, Davy Moyes went. I don't know if Andy Rhodes were left that year as well, or just before I came. But they shipped out quite a number of players that were surplus to their requirements, and they brought in. I was the first one. I had a part-time pedigree. Then they brought in Stuart Petrie from Forfar. Then they brought even in Andy Todd from junior football. Yeah. Later on, Mark Miller, David Bingham. So really shrewd dealings with players that really established themselves in the part-time scene and could make a step up, and that was the best over the years, because they developed it over and over. That was the best squad or the best team that I played in. Games that we didn't deserve to win, we won because of the fighting spirit, because we believed in each other, because we trusted each other. So that really started with me, with me going to Dunfermline and others, really cheap players. We would be pretty cheap because we didn't have a huge career behind us, but very shrewd and so funny with the characters that were there as well,
It's funny, we had Ian Westwater and Colin Miller on, and they said that, Evo, they said that they loved just going to training because it was just laughing and joking all the time, but you got results on the pitch as well. I guess it must have been some place to go to your work where you're enjoying yourself so much. Yeah,
because Bert would never make it too complicated. He knew the qualities of every individual player. Dick would tear you down a little bit more, and Bert could do that as well, but he would just do that with one word, Yeah. But if you played your heart out and you really fought for the club, fought for the team, and your performance wasn't top, as long as you really showed your appetite and your desire, that was good to them, and but through their no-nonsense style and their ability to form a team, that's what the connection was built between all those players, and that's really one of the biggest jobs that a manager has, you know, to build a squad, but also to build a team that believes in each other. And nowadays it's a little bit different at the top, but at a certain level, when you show up with 11 players that have one mind of winning that game or stopping the opposition, you can get a hell of a far. Yeah. You know, and you see it at the Italians at the Euros. Yeah. That was more than the sum of their individual qualities. Yeah. And that's what Bert and Dijk did fantastically in the first 3-4 years. And then they started tinkering with the squad, bringing players from England up, and they killed a little bit that team spirit.
Yeah.
In the desire to make the next step.
Yeah. But the first 2 seasons, were they tough, Evo? Being you missed out on winning the championship by a point. I know the second season you lost the playoff against Aberdeen, but was that tough to take, those 2 seasons?
Disappointed in the end, but and we were pipped, obviously, by Falkirk and Raith Rovers.
Yeah.
But what remains more with me is the style of play we had and the number of goals we scored and the joy we had in playing games and beating teams 5-6-0. I think at the time we scored something like 93 league games or something, league goals or something like that. And that remains much more in the back of my head than that we didn't make it, you know. And the first time that there was the playoff, who can imagine that United gets relegated and Aberdeen are second bottom, you know, because there were teams above that would suit us much better than playing Aberdeen, you know. And Aberdeen, they had Duncan Shearer and Billy Dodds up front. And they were second bottom of in the league. So, and they had a hell of a squad, you know. Stuart McKinney was playing.
Nothing and all that.
So they had a squad, and we were just not geared up for that, you know.
Yeah. You mentioned the style of play. You built up a good relationship with Hamish French. I mean, the fans loved you too. Did you enjoy playing alongside him? What did they call you? Is it fish and chips or something like that? It's a bit funny, but
yeah, I've never heard that. I've never heard that when I was in Scotland. I hear it now, but it was brought up to me. The first time it was brought up to me when I worked in the UK in 2013. Yeah. Somebody put a clipping from a paper that it was fish and chips, but I can't remember it. But Hamish took the pressure off me because he was had a lot more grey hair than I had at the time, you know? So I was quite happy with Frenchie. Now, Frenchie was one of these teammates that would also run for days, even more than I did. Very unselfish, good with right peg, left peg, and a fantastic trainer on the day, but also a very nice person, you know. But probably the best partnership I also had with Jackie McNamara, because he came through as a YTS, just like Neil McCann did as a YTS when I was at Dundee. But Jackie, I can see Jackie sitting as a quiet 18-year-old YTS boy just coming into the squad, you know, and then half a year later he's established himself as the main right back in our squad. And then years later, he goes off to Celtic and have a fantastic career with how many caps for Scotland. So, but it wasn't only the partnership with Frenchie. I also had a really good understanding with George O'Boyle.
Oh, what a player he was, yeah.
Yeah, and I would play wide right, and I would just whip in balls, and George would understand where, from my position and my standing, if the ball would come at the front post or the ball would come at the back post. And I did have a good cross with loads of bend on it and at pace. It's like my leg, if you see my feet, it's 5-1, and that means that I have certain muscles in my on the inside in my groin, so I can really pass at pace. And for crosses, that's fantastic, you know, and I could really ping in a ball at front post, and George would just anticipate it. And he scored maybe 10 to 15 goals out of that kind of situation. And on the other side, we had Stuart Petrie, who would do exactly the same.
Yeah. So
we had a really good team over the years, you know, George Boyle, French up front, later on Andy Smith with Frenchy up front. I played on the, as we say it, on the graveyard shift, white right, white left, Stuart Petrie, good defensively. So yeah, that's the memories I have from those seasons, you know, always going for goals, always going for wins.
Yeah, and of course you'd go up that next season at 95, 96. It's such a memorable one, Ivo. I mean, it's emotional, of course, with the passing of Norrie McCarthy at the turn of the year. That sort of bring you guys closer together, do you think, and go on to and win the championship?
Well, it was already a strong nucleus. So we missed out twice on promotion or on the championship, and yeah, when your teammate dies, you know, it's a tragedy. You know, it's a tragedy for the family. It's a tragedy for the club, for the players, and from a certain point, professionalism takes over again. You know, you just go for it, and but you cannot always play with that mind of we do it for Norrie, because that hampers your decision making and hampers your freedom to play the style of football that we had played. But your professionalism takes over, and you go and do the things that that you know that are success, bring you success, and that's what brought us together, you know. Outside the games, yeah, we would talk about it, but in the games, total professionals, just geared to one thing, is win that game, you know. And when the 90 minutes were over, yeah, then we would talk, well, good one, you know, one step closer, good for the big man. But I don't think there's a professional that goes into a game with that kind of mindset, you know, because if you play with that kind of mindset, I think you either freeze, or you get leggy, you know.
Yeah, I think we've seen it a little bit with Denmark in the Euros at that Finland game. I think it knocked them for six, didn't it? See that everyone remembers that second last game against Dundee United. You'd won 1-0 at Tannadice. Stuart Petrie was sent off. It was a heroic game, and sort of helped you to win the league. Can you remember much about that game, Ivo?
Yeah. Well, there was a lot of rumor and a lot of chat about the fact that we only got 2,000 tickets for the game.
Yeah.
And the away stand was confiscated by United supporters itself, and then they were put into one area of the main stand, right in the corner where the tunnel is, where you go into the dressing rooms. So that was filtering through. The other one was I think the Sun or one of the tabloids that presented a poll about the 8 league managers. Was it 12 of a league or 10 of a league? Maybe I don't know exactly.
Yeah, I think it might have been 10 back then.
But all the other managers, bar one, chose for United, and probably quite right, you know, because they were at home, they had a bigger budget, they had a better squad. Maybe if you look at the squad that they did have that day, and that made us more determined, you know. And if you look at the highlights of that game, we rode our luck there as well, you know, because Daly rattled the bar, Craig Brewster rattled the bar. But we scored early doors, and we stood firm and won the game. And obviously, even better, then you find out later on that the trophy was there in the car of the SFA representatives. And yeah, with that last game, the last game would have never happened, you know.
Yeah.
That if it had been a draw, had it been a loss, the last game was gone. So yeah, I obviously battled it with 10 men for about half an hour or something like that. Yeah. So yeah, great memories. Great night out on the town again.
Yeah.
Of course, milked all the commentaries and the hugs and the free beers that you got. So yeah, and I think we even had it was a time at the end of the season, so you go to the supporter clubs, you know, around the supporter clubs, player of the year things and things like that, and we would spread out because there was different supporter clubs. But yeah, that was some game to be involved in.
You're part of you mentioned the supporters club, you're part of the former players association and all that as well, and I think you're voted runners up in the cult heroes as well for the club. So it's certainly a team that's close to your heart, Ivo.
Yeah, I must admit I have a really good rapport with the supporters as well, and at Montrose.
Yeah.
At Dunfermline and even at Falkirk.
Yeah.
So I don't know why. It's just I've really enjoyed my time there, and there was always a really good rapport with the supporters. You know, I would take my time to sign any program, photos, whatever. I would take my time to speak to people. I would, I'm just one of them, you know. I just happen to be a footballer.
Yeah, and I mean, I was going to say, like Dundee, when you went up to the Premier League, finishing 5th, amazing to think for Dunfermline, a club of that size. But I guess that was just down to, I guess, good management and all the players having a good team spirit.
Yeah, we spilled over from the year that we won the championship.
Yeah,
and that was that team spirit was just there, you know, and teams opposition would underestimate how we play and the strength of our team and the team spirit as well, you know. So in the first year you always see the team going up unless they are really weak, but you always see them doing pretty well. It's the second year when they know how they play, what their strengths, what their weaknesses are, when they struggle to make the top half. But yeah, that first year, I think again it was 4th or 5th that we finished just outside the European places. I suppose I don't even know if 4th was European places, but fantastic season again, and up with the big boys, you know.
Yeah. Guido van de Kamp was there as a goalie, fellow Dutchman. Yeah. Did you pal about with him, Ivo?
Yes. Yeah, Guido lived in Kirkcaldy.
Yeah.
So, and I was living in Kinross, Milne Thort.
Yeah.
So we would visit every now and again, and we'd have a coffee with him or go and see his family, you know. And but there as well, I played golf with a couple of guys that I knew from the club or supporters, you know, and played sometimes golf with. And Guido didn't play golf, so he was really a family man. And I was living with my then girlfriend, now wife, and she was working as a procurator fiscal. So I had more free time than Guido had.
Yeah. See, when you mentioned Dunfermline, when Bert sort of changed the squad a little bit, brought some players in from England, you would leave, of course, in '98. Were you sad to leave at the time, Ivo? Do you feel you had more to offer?
Every player, you know, when you're in a club, you always think that you are the best option for the manager. Otherwise, you don't train as hard, and if you don't believe in yourself, you can't really expect to play well. But at that time, you think I should play every game.
Yeah.
You know, that's I think the attitude of 99% of the players. And well, 98 season started, and there was nothing really suggesting that I was going out of the squad or being left out of the squad or left on the bench. But I think by mid-September I had more turns in the stand and on the bench that I'd played from the start, you know, and I really couldn't do with that, because the whole week you train for something, you know, and then in the end there's like a lead balloon in your attitude because you're not in the squad or you're on the bench. And I said, well, I can't deal with this, you know. I didn't come to Scotland to train all week and not do anything with the energy and with the qualities that I have.
Yeah.
So I asked the club to I asked them what my position was, if I was a fringe player, becoming a fringe player. And I've seen many of my colleagues that were fringe players and dealt with this in a positive way, but I couldn't deal as a fringe player. I need to be in the center. I need to be playing.
Yeah.
So I asked them what my position was, and they said, well, there's people ahead of you. Chris Templeman came on the scene, younger players came on the scene. Fair enough, you know. So I said, well, what's the options then? Well, can release you, you can go and keep fighting for your place. And I said, well, I can't do this. I can't have that uncertainty of training every week, going for it, and then playing your games with the stiffs on Monday afternoon against young boys, you know.
Yeah.
So I had my contract terminated with mutual consent, and then I played amazing 2 games for Ross County, where Neil Cooper, my former teammate, was the manager.
Yeah. Why only 2 games? Did you not fancy being so far up north and you came back down the road?
No, Neil said, well, come up here, you know, sign a month's contract, and then see what you make of it. And so Ross County was part-time in that era, you know, so they just went up the league. So I dropped down, I think, 2 leagues. Yeah. From Premier League to second division. Played 1 home game, played another away game, and then I got the flu, the worst flu I've ever had. So I was just out for 2 weeks, and I didn't play again. I couldn't. I was in my bed for straight 2 weeks, you know.
Yeah.
Never had anything like it afterwards or before. So my contract ran out, and then in the meantime, Alec Totten came on the scene and started calling me and wanting me to Falkirk. And obviously I lived in the Central Belt, Kinross area. So Falkirk was ideal for me, was a higher level, were again in the top of the first division. So that was a much better opportunity for me there. And that's why it only were 2 games for Ross County.
Yeah, and of course Falkirk now in a lovely new, well, I say new, they've been in their sort of new stadium for a while, but you played at Brockville, the old-fashioned ground. What was that like, Ivo?
Well, it was like going back to Montrose, because they had a similar stand, maybe not the terracing, but I went back to the new stadium as well, and I've been obviously quite a number of times at the Montrose Stadium. But when you look at those new stadia, you think back of the just small wooden stands with the dingy dressing rooms and the players' room, you know, and the manager's office. And I always think back, well, that was good as well, you know. You would smell the middle gun or the deep heat right through in the boardroom and things like that. And nowadays these stadia are much different, and they don't have the character that those stadia had at that time, you know. But yeah, I got for the former Dunfermline player, I got a massive reception positive reception at Falkirk, of course.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Did you get any stick when you played against them, or was it all good fun?
No, probably pretty much in the hearts and minds of the supporters rather than the players, you know. For the players, it's just a job, and it's a club. And if the club is Falkirk or Dunfermline, and I have had a bigger success at Dunfermline, but it doesn't mean that Falkirk people are not nice people to me either way, you know.
And then you went back to Holland when your time with Falkirk came to an end in 2000. Were you ready to leave Scotland at that point, Ivo, or did you know that you're going to look at a different career elsewhere?
Well, it's actually started in 1999 because I'd obviously had a degree from the Netherlands already, and my wife was working for the Procurator Fiscal in first Dumbarton, later on in Falkirk. And I thought, well, maybe it's time to start a career, my regular career in the Netherlands, because labor market was really tight. I didn't have any work experience, but I had a lot of living experience abroad, and that would put me up the ladder a little bit higher than when the labor market is really relaxed and it is an employer's market, you know, and this was an employee's market. So I thought, well, maybe it's a good time to do that now. Plus, why did I mention about my wife? My wife got involved in the Lockerbie trial.
Oh, wow.
So she was the family liaison officer in that court case. So that was a really big influence as well, that I could take my wife to the Netherlands and she would take her work with her, you know, on a really challenging project, and a really something that will remain with her for the rest of her life. So I thought, well, this is the time to do it. And then I moved back in, moved back in June, July after the season. And then the court case got postponed and postponed and postponed. Yeah. Because of rulings, and that wasn't completed. And then I was in the Netherlands and she was in Scotland, and we just got married as well in January 1999. And then I thought, well, I wasn't married to my wife to be separated, you know. So I worked a few months in the Netherlands, and then around Christmas time, or just at the start of December, I phoned Alec Todd and I said, listen, I'm coming back to Scotland for 5 months. Is there a place for me in your squad? So I got him hooked, and I played from January 3rd, I think I played, or January 2nd, I played again for 5 months with Falkirk. And that, I can remember the reception. We were playing at Airdrie away. Yeah. New Year's Day fixture. There's the best reception. The best reception obviously had been in the paper. I came with a ferry, signed a contract on SFA contract. They fired it off to the SFA. I got released from to play in that game. Best reception I've ever had with the warming up. Still really vividly in my mind how that felt. Yeah. Played a really good first month. Got manager of the month, player of the month award as well. Yeah.
And when the time came to hang up the boots, Ivo, were you ready to do that? Were you prepared to retire? And did you miss a lot of players miss the dressing room and the banter and what have you. Is that something that you missed?
I had a 2-year contract. Alec really tried to convince me to stay for another 2 years. And I said, well, no, I'm going back now. My wife's project has started, and I thought it was the right time to do, you know. I wanted to prevent two things. I wanted to prevent that I was going down the leagues when age and ability and physical ability deteriorated.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be in charge of that decision when to stop. So I wanted to stop at a reasonable level, highest level I could achieve, and that's why I stopped. And I had a good position to jump on the career ladder in the Netherlands. I never regretted it, to be honest, because I played at the end till the end at a good level, and I made that decision myself, which is something that I really cherish.
Yeah, there's not many players that come from Holland or whatever, and their entire career is pretty much in Scotland. It really is something else. It leads us on now, Ivo. What was it you're doing now to keep busy?
It's been over 20 years, of course, that I've been back here, and I've always been working as a manager or a leader in teams that either in security or in logistics or whatever, you know. But I have that ability to form teams. Like my managers have had that ability to form teams and to seek out positions where I can really bring across that mentality of building winning teams.
Yeah,
and that's what I do, and I do that now in a big e-commerce organization. I'm there as an interim manager, and what I do is I connect to people. I make sure that they understand me, that we build trust, and from building trust, we start building a team and building a joint goal. And then hopefully everybody feels themselves at home, safe, but also as a professional. So that's what I do. And now I've been doing for about 20 years now.
Fantastic.
And always in different companies and always in different settings. But everywhere the dynamics are the same, and it's the same dynamics as there are in football teams or in other sports teams. And the left arm should know what the right arm wants, and it's really easy to translate from the dressing room and the football pitch to business.
Yeah.
You know, and I like to play in the middle, either in midfield or through the middle. That's where the things happen, you know, and I make things happen. I get people into action. I get them to help each other, because that's pretty much what football is about as well. One day I help you, you help me the next day, you know, and so I've translated everything that I've learned from football. I translated into business.
Yeah.
And do exactly the same.
Yeah, fantastic. We wish you all the best going forward as well, Ivo. It's been absolutely brilliant having you on. So thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
You're welcome. And all the best to my Scottish fellow former players and fans.